All right, guys. Happy Friday. Um, Today, all I'm going to do is show you guys how to do the virtual lab. So, you should have noticed that there was a virtual lab listed in this week's stuff. I'm going to show you guys how to do that kind of stuff, and maybe we'll answer some of these questions together. But basically, uh, there's two different things that you should have gone to. The first is the link to the actual virtual lab. As soon as you click on that link, it should take you to somewhere that looks like this. The second part is a paper that I made based on their journal stuff and their questions in the virtual lab itself. So let's go ahead and open this up. It should take you to Flash Player. I'm going to go ahead and click and allow it. So, if you look over here at the left, it says the organisms in an ecosystem interact with one another and with the abiotic factors of the environment in various ways. Remember, abiotic factors are the things that are non-living characteristics in an environment. Some examples of abiotic factors include temperature and rainfall. A desert ecosystem's abiotic factors include a small amount of rainfall and warm daytime and cool nighttime temperatures. A temperate forest abiotic factors include an average amount of rainfall and a wide temperature range. So, kind of based on the biome, you're going to get different things out of it. So, let's go ahead and figure out what we're doing. So, we're making food chains here. And we're going to be posting what we do, like which animals and organisms we choose over here in each of our little food chains. So we got to figure out how to do our producer. So let's start with the temperate forest. And sorry, I got my sound going to the other thing. All right, let's get a little bit better now. So we've got like 5 different options. Let's go ahead and choose our producer. I'm guessing this green thing. Boom, right there. First order consumer, that's going to be our herbivore. So I'm going to guess our frog is going to be our first order consumer because it's going to be eating our producer. Next, I would say the fox has a better chance of going after this. So second order consumer, that's going to be our carnivore. And then our apex predator, the bear. And eventually everything dies and gets decomposed. So let's go ahead and check.
Congratulations! You have correctly sequenced the links of the food chain.
I feel great. So first, let's go ahead and put what we did. We chose forest. Our producer looks like some lily pads, maybe. Some sort of plant. Our first order consumer, that was the frog. Second order consumer was a fox. Third order, the bear. Decomposer, I'm gonna guess that's like a bacteria maybe? Or a fungus. I don't know, one of those two. But let's go ahead and reset. We'll do one with the desert biome. And man, that is kind of loud. So I'm going to turn that sound down a little bit. That's better. All right, let's go ahead and do a desert biome. We got a mushroom, a mouse, looks like a hawk, a little bird, and a cactus, or a desert plant. So first thing we got to do is do our producer. What is producing the energy in here? Once again, photoautotrophs are the main type of thing that produces energy, so I'm going to go ahead and put the cactus right there. First order consumer, that's going to be our plant eater. And if I had to guess, I'm guessing this little mouse guy, this little rodent, is going to be our first order consumer. If I had to say beyond that, I would say this bird probably takes out the mouse, and the hawk is going to be our apex predator in that situation. Lastly, decomposer, definitely the fungus. Now, see if I'm right.
Congratulations. You have correctly sequenced the links of the food chain.
All right. So that's a win for number 2. Let's go ahead and put them in there. I'm going to put our, this happened in the desert. Our producer was cactus. First order consumer was a mouse. Does it actually tell us? Please tell me it tells us what it is. So we got second order, maybe. I'm just gonna put bird. And then third order was the hawk, which is a bird as well, but it's the apex predator. And our decomposer is a fungus or mushroom. So hopefully that kind of makes sense how you need to do this part. Pretty simple. Just put it together the way you think it should go. Check it, and if it works out, put what you actually listed in here. Now let's kind of try to answer some of these questions together. Sorry. Number 1, would you be likely to find a food chain containing 10 links, and why? Now, notice over here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 links going from producer all the way to the decomposer. So 10 links would be twice as many organisms. So would you be likely to find a food chain containing 10 links? I would say no. It's not very likely. Oh, yikes. There we go. So why is it not very likely? Well, as you go up the food chain, so as you get more and more towards the apex predators, you have fewer and fewer calories, so fewer and fewer organisms could exist at that point. If you got to dilute that energy, if it's got to pass down the chain 10 times, you're not going to have very many living organisms at that point. If any. There's nothing that's going to be able to make it all the way down the chain like that. So, because limited energy would make it difficult, is what I'm going to say, to pass down energy 10 times. So something along those lines. And to make sure that we are marking our answers, I'm going to go ahead and put it in red. Number 2, what are abiotic factors, and how do abiotic factors affect organisms in an ecosystem? Well, as we've already kind of talked, abiotic factors are non-living factors. Non-living parts of the ecosystem or environment that are just as important to the survival of the living things as the other living things passing down their energy. So how do abiotic factors affect organisms in an ecosystem? Well, it could provide rainfall, which is water, something necessary for life, or sunlight energy needed for plants. These abiotic factors, they can influence your ecosystem for the better. We kind of talked about those some in the notes, but Rainfall, sunlight energy, temperature, those are all abiotic factors. They're non-living, but they are very important to the survival of the species in an area. So let's go ahead and highlight that red. Number 3, what is the difference between a producer and a consumer, and where do the producers belong in a food chain? So main difference between a producer, consumer, is where they're getting the energy from. Producers are the ones who make the energy. They produce the energy, and they convert it from sunlight energy into food energy that the things can use. Consumers, they have to actually eat other things in order to get their calories and their nutrients that they need to survive. So let's go ahead and answer that first part. Producers make the food in an environment, while consumers must eat food to survive. Now, for the second part, where do the producers belong in a food chain? Well, since they're the ones making the actual food, they would be at the beginning of a food chain. Producers are always at the beginning of a food chain. Let's go ahead and highlight all this in red. Boom. Number 4, what is a decomposer, and why are decomposers important to ecosystems? Decomposers are those things, if you look up here, back at our desert biome, you have all of these things, and when they die, they go into our decomposer section. So these will be decomposed if they don't get eaten by other things. These will be decomposed. These will get decomposed. So everything goes back to the decomposer here. Decomposers break down dead things. So they break down the dead organisms in an environment. Now for the second one, why are they important? Well, their job is to recycle, so they prevent waste of energy and nutrients. By recycling them back into the ecosystem. So big tree dies, has a lot of wood, a lot of energy. Those decomposers come in and make sure that energy and those nutrients locked in the bonds inside that tree aren't lost forever, that they can be reused by other living things, because those mushrooms can then get eaten later on, even though most of them are poisonous. They can recycle that energy back into the system. Yeah, let's go ahead and highlight all this. Boom. Number 5. Describe the food chain for a temperate forest community that contains at least 4 links. Use the following organisms: grizzly bears, oak trees, mice, squirrels, deer, robins, foxes, mushrooms, grass, plants, and grasshoppers. Identify the level of each organism in the food chain. So it looks like we need to make one particular food chain that has 4 links. So there's going to be a producer, a first order consumer, a second order consumer, and a tertiary or third order consumer. Or it could be a decomposer, one of those things. We just have to use 4 out of all of these. So I'm just going to make one up. Let's start with our producer, which in this case is going to be grass plants, I think. So I'm going to put an arrow. If I can figure out how to do it again. There we go. So we've got grass plants, and they're going to be eaten by none other than grasshoppers. these here too. So grass plants get eaten by the grasshoppers. Now those grasshoppers are the first order consumer. They are the herbivores. They're just eating the grass. Let's look for something that's going to eat our grasshopper. Maybe something like a robin. I can see a robin eating that. So let's say it goes to the robin. So bird snatches up that grasshopper, eats it. Let's find our third order. Oops. Let's find our third order consumer. Robins, maybe a fox. I'm going to say the fox gets this one. So that will be our last link in the chain. So our second part, we need to identify the level of each of the organisms in the food chain. So for grasses or grass plants, these will be our producer, because they are the ones making the energy. Grasshoppers will be our first order consumers. The robin will be our second order consumer. And lastly, our fox is the tertiary or third level consumer. Boom. Let's go ahead and highlight all of our stuff in red so we know what our answer is. Number 6, why are there fewer top carnivores than herbivores in most land ecosystems? Well, this kind of comes back to what I said earlier. There are fewer and fewer calories at that level from the original mass that are made at the producer level. So you got trees, you got grass, you got all the plants making all of the energy, and there's going to be less and less available energy as you go up the level. So as things eat it and it goes up another level, there's going to be fewer and fewer calories. So why are there so few top carnivores? Mainly because there's just not a lot of energy. So there is less available energy as you go up the trophic levels. Let's say as it moves down the food chain or up the food chain. Simpler way of saying it. So less available energy as it moves up the food chain. It's pretty simple. In fact, only about 10% of the energy makes it to the next level. Let's look at number 7. Are people producers or consumers? And explain your answer. Well, hopefully you can tell by this point we can't go out in the sunlight and make our own food energy. So are we producers or consumers? We are 100% consumers. People are consumers. Explain your answer. We do not make our own food. As in, we don't make it inside of our own bodies. Like, you can obviously prepare your own food, but you do not make it inside yourself. Highlight red. And our last question. Let's see what time we're at. Yeah, not bad. Grizzly bears are top carnivores in some North American ecosystems. What do you think might happen to a community of organisms if grizzly bears suddenly became extinct? So, they're top carnivores in North American systems. They probably hunt some things like wolves. They take out some of the top carnivores. So, if they suddenly became extinct, I would say the organisms that were the prey creatures or prey species of the grizzly bear would overpopulate. Why? Well, pretty simple. There wouldn't be anything there to kill them. Nothing there to kill the prey would result in higher numbers of prey. So just a little bit better explanation. So that, once you do all your food chains and once you go through and answer the questions, pretty simple, especially now that I kind of went through it with you. That's it. All you got to do is share it with me at that point. And obviously this is a Word document and you guys don't have Word, but I figured you could just copy and paste this into a Google Doc and then share that with me. And that's how this is going to be turned in. All right, guys. Now, I think I'm done. And I'm going to stop recording and you'll see this up soon.